You better be listening to Sleazoids or I must break you.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are two theater audiences, the youngsters and the mature adults. There are numerous fine pictures made for your children. There are also many fine pictures made for the adult mind. I have just completed filming one of the most unusual pictures of its kind.
This is the genesis of gore. Gore in motion pictures was something that didn't exist before I came along. We began to make pictures which now appear in anthologies, and many of them are released on videotape. You'll see a few of them on cable, and they still play in theaters after an awful lot of years. Why? I think it's because these were films that no one else had made. And with a very small handful of exceptions, no one has made films like them since. Because when we made films, one thing the audience knew: blood was going to flow.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Sleazoids, the podcast where we go down the rabbit hole of 20th century genre fare, from the most influential canon classics to the trashiest exploitation films we can get our hands on, and invite you to tag along in helping us create a canon of sleaze. Each week is a double feature grindhouse style where we discuss two films loosely related by subject, genre, actor, filmmaker, or franchise, and at the end of each episode, along with our honorary Sleazoid, which you can become by subscribing on Patreon.
Next week, you freaks voted and want us to look at the underbelly of the American suburbs, so that's what we're going to do. Join the sleaze.
That's right. We decide on all the official ratings and rankings for every film that we cover as well. Patreon subscribers also get an honor shout out and 2 bonus episodes every single month, which we have been doing for like 6+ years. There's like 150+ bonus episodes, as well as 50+ bonus transmissions where we talk about new release genre films. And there's been quite some heavy hitters coming out this year, and there's going to be definitely a couple more coming out over the summer. Mm-hmm. So if you're interested in that, patreon.com/Sleazoids podcast. So speaking of which, we had quite a lot of people make the jump this week, so we're going to give them their shout outs here. We had Gavin Byrne sign up at $5 a month. We had Brian Cook, Matthew Fram, Coyote Jim. We had Roman, who switched from being $5 a month to signing up at the annual tier, got an entire year of the show in advance for a little bit of a monthly discounted rate if you're interested in doing that. We had Zakir Ganesh sign up at $5 a month. SK, Mel D, SMC PDX, H, a lot of people just going by letters. Jake Scheel, David Jones, Andrew Reardon, Anne, Isaac Underhill, Ash, Austin Curley, Alex Menzia, Zach Gilstrap, Alex S., Samuel Zachary Losher, Indiana or Anna, EJ, Nita Ostchik. That was bad. Darren Merlot, Taylor, and last but not least, James Wolfe. So thanks to all of you folks for signing up over at the Patreon. We appreciate that support. I hope you're enjoying all those bonus episodes.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys.
That's the one plug for the week. The other plug, as always, is Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you were listening on either one of those platforms, and I can see the stats, I can see you right now listening on both those platforms, give us a good old rating and review over there. It helps us climb the ranks and find new listeners. And the very last plug, as always, is merch. If you like the poster art that based out of Toronto horror artist Trevor Henderson did for our show, you can get that put on anything you guys can think of. And you freaks have thought of a lot of stuff. You guys have gotten pillows. You guys have gotten hoodies. You guys have gotten notebooks, coffee mugs. If you're interested in that, the link is in the description of this episode, as well as over at sleazoidspodcast.com. But that is it for the intro. Welcome back to another week. As always, I am your host, Josh Lewis, and joining me also, as always, is my co-host,
Jamie Miller. Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome. I believe 2 weeks ago would have been the last time that you folks over on the main feed would have heard from us, where we would have had special guest rock critic Stephen Hayden on to discuss a double feature of movies loosely connected to the legendary Heartland rocker Bruce Springsteen. We talked Ulu Grosbard's L.A. noir conspiracy / Catholic brother melodrama called True Confessions from 1981, which starred both Robert Duvall and Robert De Niro, and apparently inspired Springsteen's 1982 album Nebraska, which we talked about a little bit. And then we paired it with Paul Schrader's Ohio blue-collar bar band family melodrama, Light of Day, from 1987, that before eventually casting Michael J. Fox and Joan Jett as the lead siblings, as the bar band rockers in that film, it was actually originally written as a late 70s star vehicle for Bruce Springsteen under the working title Born in the USA, and then that snake stole it for the hit song, for the hit album. Paul Schrader is thanked in the liner notes of Born in the USA. Go grab your vinyl, go check it. It's a fact.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Love a good shout out to our King Paul. Yeah, Joan Jett's awesome in that too. I wish I got to see a little more of her acting wise. She specifically in the finale scene with her and the mother. I won't spoil anything other than that, but it's quite good.
Yeah, her and Gina Rowlands, kind of an interesting screen combo. But you get some real Catholic family guilt going on in there.
Yep, true Schrader fashion.
Yeah. So if you haven't heard that episode, that was 2 weeks ago over on the main feed. Go back and check it out. But last week over on the Patreon feed, in honor of the passing of a genre filmmaking titan, the B-movie producing maestro Roger Corman, we did another episode on his very decadently production designed, colorfully photographed, old school horror adaptations of Edgar Allan Poe with the god of theatrical acting himself, Mr. Vincent Price. We did a double feature of The Haunted Palace from 1963, which, despite the Poe title, actually turned out to be one of the earliest, if not the earliest, H.P. Lovecraft adaptation, with Price actually as like a New England warlock trying to like summon god monsters using the Necronomicon to create mutants with women. Weird movie. Worth checking out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we paired it with Roger Corman's iconic retelling of The Mask of Red Death from 1964 with Price as Prince Prospero. His version of Prince Prospero, who is a guy who hides out in the from the plague inside what is his gothic psychedelic like Satan cult castle for rich perverts, essentially just killing peasants and throwing parties. And definitely one of the two best films, one of the best films that those two guys collaborated on, especially the interpretive dance ballet finale that has, and all of the incredibly dreamy cinematography by Nicholas Roeg.
Yeah, when they start doing the tableaus as everybody's getting sicker and sicker, it's fantastic. I think I might have said it in the episode. It's Corman's 120 Days of Sodom.
There you go.
Love it.
So if you haven't heard that episode, that was last week over on the Patreon feed. So go back and check it out if you're interested. But moving on to this week, we are once again joined by a very special guest. He is an artist. He is a poster. He is a streamer. He is a fellow student of trash cinema who we can always count on to bring us some sort of weird curiosity. Many of you will know him by his Twitter handle, Bakun, but that guest is Oliver Leach. Oliver, welcome back, buddy. How's it going?
It's going good. Just woke up.
Wonderful.
I'm on vampire
dude.
mode.
Bet to shotgun some crazy titles early in the day,
right?
Just gore for your coffee. That's what it is.
You can straight up call me Dr. Movies, huh?
That's right. We are very glad to have you back and to set you up for this week's episode. The last time we had you on, it was a blast. People should go back and check it out and listen to it. But we did an episode themed around pulpy fictional doctors. We did the very like campy adventure serial style throwback Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze from 1975, and then we also did David Dakota's sci-fi teen sex comedy called Dr. Alien from 1989, where some like nerdy kids sex ed teacher is an alien who injects him with serum to make him grow a weird fleshy Cronenberg stalk out of his head that makes all the girls horny.
Played a little murderer guy in Cast a Deadly Spell, whose sequel I watched the other night, directed by Paul Schrader.
Nice.
What the hell? God damn.
You see that one?
Yeah. I don't know that I've seen that one. What's that one called?
I've seen that.
Dennis Hopper plays a detective named Howard Phillips Lovecraft.
Oh my God, yes, I have seen this. What a weird movie.
What's it called again?
Weird movie. Witch Hunt.
Oh, okay. No,
that's what it is. Yeah, I remember that one being
HBO original movie excellence right there.
I mean, that's how you just know. Yeah, and I remember that one specifically now. I remember it playing like some weird like Twin Peaks B-sides or something, really janky
totally,
CG.
yeah.
Isn't Eric Bogosian as well? Is like the Joseph
he's
McCartney
the, like,
guy?
Kind of McCarthy senator guy.
But
Julian
imagine
Sand is real good in it.
Imagine instead of anti-communism, Joseph McCarthy was anti-magic. I remember that kind of.
That's the plot. Yeah.
I hate magicians.
That's right. So, yeah.
And Julian Sand plays like an Irish warlock who makes a crow fly out of Dennis Hopper's mouth.
Awesome.
This is exactly why we go to Oliver. Who knows these many things about this movie that a whole bunch of people just heard about for the first time,
including myself.
Yeah,
that's
I'm a
right.
font of bullshit. Right?
It's wonderful, and the idea
Doc
last
Brown's,
time anyway was just movies loosely connected by doctors, and somehow by total accident, not planned at all. This week we are doing an unofficial sequel to that episode. So
it kind of just fell into it. Not just two more Doctor movies from 1973.
Yeah. What are the chances? What's going on here? Okay, Oliver, as our resident movie doctor,
was this a response to the hit film The Abominable Dr. Fives of 1971? I do not know.
Very possible. Also Vincent Price, great movie if no one's seen it.
Hell of a movie.
Yeah. So what two films are we talking about with Doctor in the title, and what is loosely connecting these two, Oliver?
Well, I mean, the first. Let's start with Dr. Gore, a.k.a. The Body Shop.
Yes.
Which is a Frankenstein, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, Frankenstein done in the most like no budget way possible by some weird middle-aged dude from North Carolina.
Yeah, it's very kind of Herschell Gordon Lewis, but like a lot less production value.
Something Herschell Gordon Lewis is super famous for.
Yeah, it's close to like Enos. Like he's got a little Igor guy who's very much a Torgo.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and then and what's the second one?
The second one is Dr. Gore and Dr. Death.
Yes.
Also from 73. Also kind of a Lovecraft. Kind of a thing on the doorstep.
Okay. I sort of see that. Definitely more production value, but also equally as campy.
Yeah, it was... Dr. Death very much has the vibe of a 70s TV movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a very positive way, I would say that, because I was just I loved the central performance, which we'll talk about. It was just, and also I think that these were maybe, I'll have to look up J.G. Patterson's thing, because the one's J.G. Patterson and the other one's Eddie Saeta, and I don't know that these guys directed another movie. Oh, it looks like J.G. Patterson actually did one other. I almost said these guys were almost both like one and done guys too, but I was actually strangely, because of the way we picked these, which was just Oliver sending me a list of just a bunch of shit that he watched recently. It was like, we could do something from this, and I saw two with Doctor in the title, and I went, that's sort of something, I don't know. Yeah. And then I ended up watching that, and I was like, wait, hold on. They're both about mad scientists and magicians, and both actually who do like some sort of like hypnotism a little bit. They're both trying to bring dead wives back from the dead by murdering other women.
Yep.
They both have weird mute like monster assistants. They both have creepy gender politics, and they both have out of nowhere rom-com montages in the middle of them.
Yeah. And then just like, one has pacing and one doesn't quite have pacing.
Well, Dr. Gore, I think they had maybe 7 minutes of footage of him dismembering hot naked ladies.
Yes.
Or just taping down the tinfoil.
And we'll intersperse them with footage we shot at a bar of a country singer performing the same song.
It's just
over it.
Dr. Gore is it's about padding strategies.
Yes.
How to pad out the movie around.
Which one of these movies you prefer is totally up to, I think, who you are as someone who, if you like a no-budget movie more in like the Ed Wood vein of like a guy's just trying to make something, but he clearly has no idea how to make something. That might be
it was very
the movie
Ed Wood. Yeah.
Or
like if you're really drunk and you want to watch a bad movie, Dr. Gore. If you're really stoned and you want to watch a bad movie, Dr. Death.
Yeah, Dr. Death has control.
Analysis.
Dr. Death is made by a guy who actually worked on sets in the 1950s and 60s and knew how to like shoot a movie.
Yeah, he was like assistant director on all this fucking TV. Yeah.
Yeah. So either way, we'll get into all the specifics of that, but that's what's going to kind of two very different people who basically made one movie. One guy who actually knows how to make movies and one guy who definitely doesn't, both being like, what if a doctor killed women to reanimate them?
Yeah.
Ended up kind of working. But yeah, that being said, I think
Gore,
we are going to
mesmerist.
That being said, I think we are going to jump right into it here. Let's kick things off. Let's jump into Dr. Gore.
Shattering effect or shock after another. Please do not see
The Body Shop.
filmed in psychoshock technique. You will have to be able to constantly remind yourself that what you're seeing is only a motion picture and not for real. However, if you think that you can really take it, don't miss it.
The Body Shop.
How to make the perfect woman.
All right, we are talking Dr. Gore, aka The Body Shop, or How to Make the Perfect Woman. The 1972 or 73, I couldn't exactly tell when this came out. It might have had one of those releases where it kind of came out across the board. But it is an American splatter horror film written and directed by a man named J.G. Patterson Jr. and also starring J.G. Patterson Jr. as Dr. Don Brandon, America's #1 magician, it says in the credit, which I was trying to figure that part out. But he is a plastic surgeon turned mad scientist who, alongside his hunchbacked Igor-esque assistant Greg, lures, murders women and harvests their body parts in order to reanimate his dead pinup model wife, Anitra, Bride of Frankenstein style, or maybe Frankenhooker style is more accurate. That's a double feature that Jamie and I have been planning to do that we just haven't got around to yet, but we will do that. Because this is only one of 2 movies he made, this is our first time talking about the B-movie filmmaker, J.G. Patterson Jr., who you will not be surprised to learn was a makeup artist, turned filmmaker, and also apparently a protege of the godfather of gore himself, splatter filmmaker Herschell Gordon Lewis, a filmmaker I'm actually still embarrassed we still haven't got around to covering yet. At some point, the dude was like, he was doing goopy gore in like the 1960s and calling his movies The Wizard of Gore and the Gore Girls, and like we'll have to do it.
And he was doing it with like the manner of like an industrial filmmaker too.
Legend.
He was just churning it out because he knew what the kids wanted to slop. It was great.
There's actually, if you go on YouTube, as I was doing research, there is an introduction that he recorded. It seemed it was old itself, honestly. I wasn't sure exactly what decade it was from, but he recorded one introducing this movie when it was rediscovered, because apparently it got lost for a few years and then was discovered and then distributed. And Lewis is one of the guys that does an intro for it, so you can look that up on YouTube. I might even use it in the middle of this episode somewhere, but yeah. So we had respect for the guy for sure.
Well, there you go.
It does have some, for the period, it does have some decent gore. Speaking of gorehound,
I think this movie probably, when it shines, it's because of the gore.
Yeah, in the like 4.5 minutes where Yeah. But like, you kind of like figure out like, oh, I guess she does have her arms underneath that table, which is just a kind of bloody torso.
Yeah, I think they use good strategies.
Patterson supposedly also, he was on the 1967 feature The Gruesome Twosome. And he I think assistant produced maybe some other ones, and so yeah, he was a guy who definitely, like, he learned what filmmaking chops he has of any kind. He learned them from Herschell Gordon Lewis, which was mostly just like scenes in a really chintzy lab of someone's arm being sliced off and how goopy that could possibly be. And honestly, I kind of like the idea of doing Bride of Frankenstein, but in the style of a gross Herschell Gordon Lewis like splatter grindhouse B movie. I did end up finding this one a little lacking, to be honest. Like, there are certainly lots of scenes of Dr. Brandon and Greg, which I don't know why that made me laugh. Those are their actual names. Just Dr. Brandon and Greg. They a lot of this movie is them dismembering
like hippie leftover kind of Igor. Like, if you've seen the film Under the Silver Lake, do you remember the sinister pirate?
Oh,
yes.
Yes.
That's what Greg looks like here if he had like a hump.
Yeah. It is just, it is funny to set him up as an Igor character and then give him Greg as the name. It is.
Yeah, very much the comic relief.
Yeah. And I mean, throughout the film itself, like I had a hard time understanding whether or not it was trying to be funny in certain moments or if it was self-aware of that. Certain moments I think absolutely, but then there's others where I was just like, was that just a padding moment? Was that
I would say the full pageantry of human emotion is present in this film.
Absolutely.
You got
put that quote on the VHS.
Yeah. It starts off with a very sad Frankenstein, wife dead.
Yeah.
Wants to make new wife. He's got a little friend.
Although, this is one thing I'll have to ask you guys about, because I immediately went, well, he's sad about his wife, but his plan is to go on dates with all these various women, hypnotize them, bring them back, and then disassemble them with saws to create the ultimate smoke show babe wife. And I kind of went, dude, all these girls like you and like want to make out with you for some reason. I mean, because he scripted them to be interested in him. But I was like, I don't think you need to, like, is that woman, her hands were just worth that,
It's entirely counterproductive. It's a terrible plan from top to bottom.
Yeah, like there's one, and I mean, every single woman that he goes on a date with is probably half his age. But there's one on a beach where he just starts making out with her like right away. I'm like, wow, she's super into you, man, and she's beautiful. Just go continue dating.
He's a sort of like homely old cigarette smoking 1950s guy. He looks like John Carradine kind of.
Yeah.
Worst comb over of all time, by the way.
Yeah, he's really not letting it go. That's for sure.
And it opens with like a fucking 10-minute. It feels like an interminable sequence of them wrapping up a lady in foil like a TV dinner.
with like a good, I will say this, it's some of the the cheapness of the lab, and it got me going sometimes just with like the zoom in on knobs that don't seem to be doing anything and just meters going up and down and lights going on and off.
Did you guys like the song?
Like a light in it?
Did you guys like that opening song that almost sounds like a weird bare bones version of My Favorite Things from The Sound of Music, where it's like,
it was. Did you? Through the credits, there's lyrics to it.
Yeah. Was it not
by
that? Like, did they change the lyrics?
They changed the lyrics, dude. 100%.
It's so it is like, get away with like it's a cover or a parody, or something like that.
Yeah, well, because it does the sugar and spice and everything nice, but then he starts talking about like the way that you build a woman, and he's like as they get bigger, they take on figure, and some are much nicer than others, and then the lyrics get really explicit. So take it from me, if you like what you see in a blonde or a brunette or a redhead, remove what you like with an axe or a knife. And don't mind that you leave the girl quite dead. With a scientific plan, an arm or a hand may be joined to a beautiful torso. When all sewed together, the perfect cadaver will be just the right girl, only more so.
Dude, bars.
Like,
as far as I'm concerned,
he put the effort into writing that song and like having this like really cheap little like electronic like organ that he's playing it through, and like that's the credits of the movie, which then goes into they jump you right into the premise. But what's so funny is you could just immediately tell this guy has like, he's never written a movie, he's never acted in a movie before, so his idea of conveying information to the audience is like writing lyrics to a song like that. Or in the opening scene, there's just a blind man feeding ducks at a pond who we never see again. We know nothing. This guy does not matter at all, but he's loudly listening to a radio report about our guy delivering exposition about the renowned plastic surgeon, Dr. Brandon. Well, his pinup model wife, his social butterfly wife, she tragically died in a car accident last night. And now back to country singer Bill Hicks with the one song that plays over and over again. A Heart Dies Every Minute, which I'm assuming he just caught him playing at a bar once, and he was like, "Dude, can I use that?" And the guy was like,
I wasn't sure because I don't think they have him actually perform it. It's just the song. But I also thought that he did the second song when it's basically the opposite, because he has one about heartbreak, and then when they're doing the love montage, it's about being in love. So it sounded like similar voices, but he's not performing it like he is in the other one. So I wasn't sure. But yeah,
it does feel like Ed Wood and Herschell Gordon Lewis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Made a Frankenstein movie, made a Bride of Frankenstein movie. Yeah, it's almost pretty much exactly what you're looking at. And I will say honestly, it certainly does have some strange and awkward charm at times, that it does, out of being kind of technically inept and clearly made for what appears to be $0.
And as far as like drive-in chum goes, it's got naked ladies, it's got blood and gore.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's got a hunchbacked hippie guy jumping around like a little monkey.
I was going to say, a movie being made for $0 by some random middle-aged dude from North Carolina who doesn't know how to write, shoot, or act or pace a movie is not a deal breaker for us. There are a number of Ed Wood movies that we love. I will say part of my affection for those movies is a little bit of a sense of like an outsider artist ambition and kind of an imagination that exceeds the technical grasp. Unfortunately, I do think for this, outside of a few montage and music choices, which I do think are weird and I'm excited to talk about, especially some of just some of the scoring choices, some of the country ballad stuff that he does, it doesn't quite indulge in as much like surrealism or like that dreaminess I sometimes get from Ed Wood. Like the atmosphere of this movie is weirdly flat considering the concept of the movie, which is him hypnotizing dates into coming home with him to his chintzy mad science lab and then chopping them up with his hunchback buddy in order to reassemble a empty-headed sex toy wife, essentially. Like it's a very absurd and gross idea, and I think someone with a little bit more imagination would have done something with that.
Yeah.
Which is a very 19th, like kind of, House on Haunted Hill.
Like,
yes.
You're almost expecting something eventually to get to a more surreal place. Like, it was the Charles Pinion movie.
But then it becomes a rom-com,
like,
and I was like, wait, that's it? That's all this was leading to? I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, what was that movie that we watched? It was by Charles Pinion. It's not Twisted Issues. It's the other one that we did. It was like We Await. Yeah, We Await. At the end, when you have the giant kaiju Jesus Christ with the mini penis, like it's just like like I'm waiting for that kind of moment. You know what I mean? And it never quite gets there. What they really do hyper focus on is the gore, which I think is his major sell. I did when H.G. Lewis was doing his introduction, he did mention something like most horror movies like this would use about 3 to 5 gallons of blood, but Patterson insisted on using like 15 gallons of blood. So they're definitely selling it on the fact that this is
kind of an insane montage at the end of it.
Yes,
like a lengthy montage of all the gore happening
shots
at once.
Yep. Yeah. So that's what it's mostly proud of. And I will say, like, that can be fine as long as there's stuff in the middle that has that kind of weird surreal quality. And like you've said, Josh, there's moments, it's just there's a lot of padding. Like the one we already mentioned was when it takes him like 2 minutes, and I mean 2 full minutes to tape down the radiation tinfoil for one of the bodies. Like it's just stuff like that where I'm like, okay, you can cut this, get it onto it, make this into a 60-minute movie almost in a sense.
Yeah, well, I just think it's like such an absurd and gross idea that someone could actually make productively kind of like absurd and gross, and like maybe address some of the wonky gender politics of the movie or even just the horror comedy vibe of it all. Like the movie that I think does this incredibly well is Frankenhooker. Like that is like for me.
Oh sure.
Like that is like, Frank Henenlotter going Stuart Gordon mode and doing the 80s mad scientist body horror version. But he really does like, take the gruesome juvenile logic of a main character who's trying to like control a woman's bodily autonomy and like actually gets a really amazing physical performance out of the creature. But this movie has no interest in like the creature woman. She actually, when she's finally made, she is just like a hot woman who just is dumb. Yeah. And like, and you spend so many scenes of watching, like I will just say it, like so many scenes of him just being like, so you're my new like sex slave, pretty much. You know, you're my new subservient plaything. And I went, those scenes were actually kind of more gross to me than the scenes of him chopping ladies up. Yeah.
He was getting off on it.
I was even like, I mean, forgive me for jumping so far, but it kind of goes along with just why he made the girl what was happening this whole time. I'm pretty sure I'm not getting the two movies mixed up, but by the end, it's almost like he's been hallucinating this whole thing or something. Like isn't he like kind of crazed in a cell after she leaves him? And anyway,
does it say why he's in a cell? No.
Yeah, no, that was very confusing. The jump to that, I was just like, we clearly missed a major.
That also might have just been inept filmmaking, and he might not have connected some dots for us. Because for a little while, I was also wondering what happened to the girl, and then the very ending of the movie, they were like, "Oh, okay, something."
Yeah, so it is.
To the girl, I guess.
So I guess it's not this like crazed hallucination. It did happen, but he's just the situation has made him kind of insane, I suppose. And I guess it was doing.
We haven't been given the the full. Like, does it say why he's in prison, or we're just to assume he was caught?
No, it doesn't. Murders? I remember when it happened, I went back to because I was thinking I must have missed like a minute of dialogue or something, and he just shows up in the cell, and then the woman is talking to him that's cleaning the floor and everything. It's very strange.
And like, there's two people who come and confront him. It never said who they were.
Yeah, they're brand new characters.
I'm pretty sure the one woman is the one woman he tried to pick up, or who tried to date him earlier, but she was like old or something at the bar, and I think that she was kind of like showing off that she found someone else or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
So he makes a hot babe, and he's having a great time. They're having a picnic, and he tells Greg the Igor, "You don't." I feel so bad. Look at her.
Yeah, I feel so bad for Greg, because the whole, I want to say the first portion of the movie is just Dr. fucking Brandon. He's at a funeral. He throws a flower. He kind of announces an inner monologue his intent to become the 70s Dr. Frankenstein. He's like, we're going to be reunited again. I found the secret to life.
It's like Bela Lugosi's acting in Plan 9, pretty much.
Yeah. But immediately he's like, it's cutting to him nighttime grave robbing with his wife's body and with his hunchbacked pal, Greg, who just looks like he has like a pillow under his sweater, like behind his shoulders, and is always chomping on a cigar and grumbling and struggling to get his lab coat over his hunch, which is like one of the funnier details every single time he tries to put his coat on. And the first portion of the movie is just those two guys in a really rickety lab set that, like, based on second unit exterior shots, they seem to imply is like in a castle. But it's like clearly like a crummy basement where you can see the fake walls that they've set up and everything. And they have very lo-fi tools and techniques, like, as both of you have mentioned, keeping the radiation rays in the body by just putting a thin layer of tinfoil over 70s.
It's not like 70s kind of shitty either. It feels like 1950s shitty.
Yeah, it absolutely does. The only thing that's missing is like the black and white. It's just it straight up looks like it's 20 decades older than it is. And it's very funny.
We're gonna keep the reanimation rays inside here by just like covering her the way you would like leftovers in the fridge with like a little bit of duct tape, and then they flip some switches. There's some little bit of lights and sparks and like a little bit of this eerie organ playing. I think they throw like maybe one set of like cheap colored floodlights, and they do a little bit of rapid cutting, but it's all of like just a close up of like a dial and like a close up of like one of their weird faces in like an inconsistent place around the room somewhere. Sometimes near the body, sometimes near the equipment, sometimes just in like a black void that's like clearly not even the same set. And eventually
they try to deliver the idea of chaos just through completely like indiscernible geography as they cut.
That's the one thing where I was like, the editing is sort of interesting, but I think it's literally just because the footage, there's nothing in the footage that it's like you have to generate some sort of atmosphere out of the editing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's just like the cheapness of zooming in on a machine that's smoking, and then you start to see just like two wires poking out or something like that. They're just like giving you enough image so that it delivers the information they need to convey, but not enough that it would be, an extravagant set design or anything like that.
And J.G. Patterson's acting is very funny, just like off the charts level of flat and staring and like affectless and just like creepily caressing roses, muttering like, "We'll be together soon, except this time you'll be perfect." Or Gregory, you may as well clean up this mess, and just like lights a cig, just being like, because their reanimation experiment at first is failing. They can't bring the wife back, and they eventually do have to start, one corpse isn't enough. They need to start collecting some other ones. Although I do love that the very first one this is a very big night, Gregory, very big. Gregory sleeps in like a corner, and then you just see him like kick him. He's like, get wake up, get up. Yeah. And also they hear knocking at the door. This is one of my favorite moments in the whole movie.
Me too.
He's like, "Get that, Gregory. It might be the door." And I was like, wait, hold on a second. And then he's like, "But wait, before you do, put your coat on so that they don't know you're a hunchback." And my notes were just like a ton of question marks. I was like, he's like still clearly a hunchback underneath.
Yeah. And also, why would they care if he was a hunchback?
It doesn't make any sense. It's two
so
delivery
funny.
guys bringing in a giant heavy trunk with a girl inside it. Even one of them's like, "You got a body in here, Doc?"
It's
good
just
one.
like, and they also
You're
says
under
this,
arrest
"You
for
might
being a
say that,"
hunchback.
which I thought was funny because there is a body. There's just a legitimate body in there. The
but the doctor
funny.
has he has the power of mesmerism as well.
Yes. He can
Which is some,
hypnotize.
that's not even 1950 shit. That's like 1920 shit.
Definitely. Oh yeah. This thing.
But when he's like using his like mesmer stare on ladies, he just looks at the lens. It's not like.
And there's like a weird like stinger that hits the soundtrack where it's like, or, it's like this very strange, just like you could have brought in like the fucking theremin sounds or something. Is honestly what it could have been using.
You hit him with the whammy.
That's and that's usually the sound for hypnotization is the theremin. I feel like that's the classic hypnotizing sound. There's another moment where it feels it's not a hypnotizing moment, but it feels like it could be in this funny way where it's after more murders are happening and a cop knocks on the door and he's just like, "Hey, is everything all right in there? We heard some commotion. We got a call." And he's just like, "Yep, everything's fine." And he goes, "Oh, okay, sorry to bother you." And he just leaves. And it made me laugh very, very hard. But it's funny too because it doesn't go with his hypnotization. It just felt like I don't know if it was, again, a padding moment, a moment where it was supposed to be suspenseful, but they didn't really, hold it for tension. I'm unsure.
I mean, you gotta assume everything besides the gore.
Yeah.
At a certain point, I definitely just did. I was like, "Oh, is he just, berating Gregory?" I guess it was just he wasn't really sure what to do with this scene.
Several nightclub scenes.
I did read, and I think this was in the IMDb notes, that there were actual pages on the script that didn't have any details whatsoever, just improvise a scene. Just a scene. So it was...
I get that vibe.
Yeah, there's some moments in there for sure.
Yeah, well, but they start collecting bodies, and Gregory agrees to help in return for Dr. Brandon fixing his hunch so that he too can find a beautiful mate. As they
fixes it all right. He fixes that hump.
Oh, he does. And Dr. Brandon basically just goes on a series of sexy softcore beach dates that turn into a point of view of him like drowning her and the camera's underwater. One of the few moments where I was like, wow, he did something with the camera. And then taking the body back to the lab and then dismembering it with a saw, acidically melting her limbs in a bathtub, and then keeping the perfect torso. And I will say, the Herschell Gordon Lewis makeup effects that this guy clearly, was in part, interested in, based the entire movie around. It's pretty solid, and it's maybe not the most like crazy thing that I've ever seen, but I could see it being pretty fucking nasty for 1972. I just don't know that.
Oh yeah,
it might have been hyped up a little bit by all the crazy poster taglines, which if you'll let me do this here. Warning, the doctor is out of his mind. 4 dimensions and horror beyond belief. Extreme realism using psychoshock technique. No one should see it alone. See it at your own risk. This is all on one poster, by the way. Filmed in a laboratory so evil it makes Dr. Frankenstein's workshop look like a nursery.
Yeah,
and
boys,
then lastly...
I got to admit, I saw it alone. I am currently in a straitjacket.
Oh boy, you heard it here.
Terrified.
But lastly, we have one that just absolutely made me howl. You'll forget about The Godfather when you see The Body Shop.
Oh, yeah.
That's fucking awesome. Oh my God.
Babe Ruth
I love that confidence. That is unreal. That's so funny.
That's the
I now
guarantee.
respect this movie.
Listening to this episode, you will slowly forget that The Godfather is a movie, and it will be replaced by The Body Shop.
I would love to watch The Body Shop with Francis Ford Coppola and the entire cast of The Godfather at the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want
James,
full commentary.
Next to James Caan.
I'd love to see their reaction to the scene where he just goes, feminine hands are one of the most important features on a woman.
Yeah. It's got to find the perfect, delicate hands.
Yeah, he literally goes on dates to go find women and be like, you have a great bicep. I'm gonna just chop your bicep off, and I'm gonna put that on the body. It's such a weird it's so much work. It's so much work to instead just go when he's just having successful dates with attractive women.
It's so funny. Also, I wanted to mention because when you were going through the whole thing about that's on the poster, he mentioned it's the genre of psychoshock or something like that. I was talking about Patterson giving the introduction in his doctor's outfit and costume and everything in the introduction, and he mentions that. He says something like, I've come up with this new subgenre technique of psychoshock that leaves you in a, he's like, you're terrified but can't move at the same time, and it takes over your brain and all this nonsense. I'll post it, but it's
he's doing some William Castle shit on that one.
Yeah, and I do respect that. I will say, when we had the differences with William Castle and Patterson doing it, Patterson, as he's doing it, is still a little bit, not even a little bit, a lot stiffer than the way that Castle is delivering it in his marketing. But regardless, to see it,
there was a wink to Castle.
Pizzazz,
Castle winked at you a bit. This guy, there was no wink and there's no blinking.
Yeah,
he kind of creepily stares at you, and it's a strange thing to watch him just go on the prowl at the local bar where the weirdo bad taste gore movie is briefly padded out with local bar performances. There's a magic show.
The magic show.
There's a magic show. Well, I was reminded, Jamie, what was that one we just talked about with Pinion, the Ray Dennis Steckler movie, Incredibly Strange Creatures?
Yes.
Totally.
And I was sitting there being half of that movie is him just filming people putting on a show at an amusement park, and some of these scenes here was just you're watching a guy perform a lonely country love ballad because the doctor is very sad, obviously, about his dead model wife, and that's why he's preying on these lonely girls like the one who's having a bad date, and he just stares at her until the electric ambient hum just makes her go, I'm gonna throw this plate of spaghetti in my date's face, and the red sauce, foreshadowing the red sauce soon to be coming out of her arms and hands when she wakes up screaming on the table.
He's hypnotized a hot babe into doing whatever his will he requires. That's Endgame right there, buddy.
The movie's kind of over, but he's no, I'm going to keep staring at people, make them come with me, and then I'm going to start, scalping them or sawing their body parts off. I do like the brief arm cut point of view, looking up at the doc who's slicing into the lens, and it actually breaks some I don't know, a piece of paper that they have on the lens or something. I don't know.
The switch between, the lady's arm coming through a hole in the table to the mannequin arm.
Yep.
Yeah. There are some and I do
simple tricks.
Yeah, I do like the ones too where they kind of they cover up most of the body, and then they have the actual actress's head on the table, probably going through like a hole in the table, so they can have the rest of it being a dummy. It does give a good effect of actual amputation. One in particular, I guess it's the aftermath image of it, but it's the girl that's like, she has no limbs by the end of it, and it's just like half a body on a slab. And you do see like the actual actress's face and everything. And I thought that one was pretty impressive and cool. And then it's weird too, because they'll do that, but then they jump to I guess they're trying to do comedy in a sense, or like this kind of cartoonish quality with Greg, the hunchback assistant, where one of the bodies gets like a muscle spasm and rises up, and he cartoonishly jumps onto a pole that's got electricity at the top of it and like hangs onto it like he's a scared cartoon character. It's like a weird mix of things.
If you remember Mr. Peepers on SNL, the Chris Kattan character, his little monkey boy.
Oh, maybe,
I do remember that.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, it does like even a fast, like it goes into fast motion for a second, almost making it more cartoonish as well. It's strange sometimes, just because a lot of it is still taken, I guess, pretty seriously, in as seriously as you
Greg
can
was
take
meant
it.
to be the comic relief.
Yeah, that's true for sure. until he's thrown into a tab of acid. Or a tub of acid.
Whoa, no! No!
He makes a hot babe. He says, "Gregory, you may never even look upon my hot babe."
Yeah. Yep. Even though it was like, dude, I did all of this because you said I could also have a babe. Like, what do you? And then he completely forgets it. He's like, dude, I helped you pluck women's eyeballs
because he
out.
mesmerizes the hot babe he created to be an idiot. He says, many times she will not even know what a glass of water is.
Yeah. And what's kind of interesting, at least like the movie that I'm referencing here does a lot more with it. But just the initial thing of like creating this woman that has no background in anything, and so the men are just kind of
anybody like Poor Things? Anybody watch Poor Things recently?
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. And with that, It's kind of like they build her that way, and then she uses it to rebel, and then you kind of use it against them in some way, shape, or form. With this one, they imply that, I guess, as she starts to go from guy to guy and quote unquote ruin the doctor's life or whatever. But again, he doesn't really focus in on that at all. It's just kind of, it starts to happen near the end so that he can go, I guess, insane and end up in the jail cell, I suppose. But
because like literally the first thing that he does after he's like, we've assembled enough parts underneath this white sheet, the perfect woman finally exists due to a bunch of amateur stitching that we do. And then they wait a little bit. He's like tinkering with his beaker. He's like drinking whiskey in his window. He eventually goes, look, I now have my lovely, dumb, beautiful creature, and his very like misogynistic dream that he's been working towards becomes very apparent. He's like hypnotizing her into being a stupid like sex toy doll, essentially, that he literally is proud of saying it is the brain of a newborn child with the full body maturity, and she won't even remember what a glass of water is, and your pleasure and happiness will come from listening to me and doing everything that I say. This is like he's literally like saying this to her face.
Yeah, and this kind of stuff, like, although it's incredibly gross and disgusting, it's kind of built into why you're watching this kind of film. It has the sleaziness and the gore and everything like that. And I do like
it's kind of built into the premise a little bit.
Yeah, and I do like that Patterson is, although he directed, wrote, and starred in this. It's gross to watch him, make out with women half of his age that he's hiring, but it just having. Oh yeah,
I forgot to mention that this movie does sort of feel like an excuse for him to just make out with women for a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes for sure. But
there's so many women. There's so many.
Yeah, the whole. It's just he's like, let's have a dating montage for me, basically. But I do like that he still gives this character just absolutely disgusting dialogue and motivations, and he's not hiding away from that. He's not making himself look good whatsoever, and I do. I can appreciate anybody that does that.
Yeah, even though I don't know 100% that that's what he's doing, but I do agree that that's like kind of baked into the premise.
For sure, but I think you can't write that kind of dialogue and not know that this is the character you've created. I think that he's clearly an evil character, and he's aware of that. It's just that it's just how he goes about using it on the actual production of the film that it kind of almost counteracts what he's somewhat saying with this character.
Like the extended kind of gauzy picnic date montage.
Yeah, well, see, that's what I was saying, where he like tries to get like legitimately kind of sweet with the movie for a little bit, and I was like, he's like, he's explaining gender roles. He's like, I'm a man, you're a woman, I'm firm and strong, you're soft and sweet, and then
it's not like a scene here. This is a chunk of the film.
It is. It's he's like reading her a children's book. There's a very long scene of him making her feel a statue. And then there's this very long and meant to be lyrical, like falling in love montage where it is meant to be romantic. They go hiking in the forest. They go rowboating. They're drinking wine and holding hands in the sunset. And it's intercut with them like aggressively making out on the couch or carving I love thee into a tree.
And then like this homely John Carradine old man.
It's so fun. And the love ballad lyrics of the country song are explicitly like saying the images that we're seeing about them like carving like I love you into the tree and all of that. And the thing that was disappointing to me about this section, and the thing that I think made it play worse for me, because it might have been intentionally trying to be like humorous, that like the doctor would try to have like a romantic montage with his creature, and I think that joke just doesn't work because she doesn't look like a monster at all, which to me is a kind of lazy. I'm like, this is a makeup effects artist guy. How do you not make her look like she's been stitched together and that she kind of looks a little monstrous or something? And it's just a good looking actress in a bikini pretending to be a child or pretending to be an idiot. And it made the comparison to Frankenhooker even worse, because I love Patty Mullen's performance in that movie, like the spectacular physical comedy of her performance wobbling around, and they objectify her too. Like they put her in the purple bra and mini skirt, but they give her also this powder face like makeup, and they make her so stiff and so like she inhuman in the way that she has like her animated lip curls and stuff like that. And there's something just so funny about, they actually do make her like, what if Frankenstein was like a sexy prostitute on the streets of New York, and they make her perform it that way, and they make her makeup like that. And I kind of went, he obviously doesn't have the money, but his passion is makeup effects. So I went, if there's any effort going to be put into this movie, I would assume the creature woman would actually kind of look like a creature, and then the gag might hit, because you'd be like, well, it would be weird to see a corpse lady do these, explicitly romantic montages, but it doesn't play like that, because it just plays like a weird dude creeping on a younger woman is all it plays like.
Yeah, I totally get that. I would say that I think there's something where I think there's one particular shot where he's kind of like dabbing up the scars that he's doing, the stitches around one of the limbs, and it's almost like he's trying to make the scar disappear, because he's trying to make the perfect woman, so obviously she wouldn't have the like noticeable stitching and all of that. So if they were going to do that, instead of just making her a normal beautiful woman like they do in the movie, they could have gone the complete opposite route and made her like so dullified that it's so superficial that it comes off incredibly fake and almost creepy in that sense.
That would work better too.
Yeah, because I get that he's trying, his whole goal is to make the perfect woman, so if she was grotesque, technically he would have failed by doing
conceptual leanings and stuff. I think it's kind of out of his wheelhouse.
Yeah, I totally agree. But yeah. So, but again, he needs to do one or the other. You know what I mean?
Like the director is a makeup guy. Come on, buddy.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's what I'm going to say. It's if it's the thing that you're clearly known for, it's the thing that you're clearly passionate about in some regard. I expected, because I would say it too. The Frankenhooker actress, even when she's made up, she's not like an ugly person or anything. She's just like but it's very clearly she's still like a reanimated corpse. Whereas in this, it's like it's
monstrous.
Yeah. And in here, I was like, that would have made that romantic montage actually funny, I think. And in this case, it just kind of plays as,
There is one moment.
She wears the same bikini the whole film.
There is one moment that I think is funny when in regards to her just being completely normal looking after, is the actual montage of the surgery where they're showing like, the stitching of the arm, removal of limbs, the removal of eyeballs and replacing them with other ones. And then all of a sudden you show her and she's just like normal, beautiful lady. And I don't think it's on purpose by any means.
He's a very good doctor.
That kind of, exactly. That kind of jarring imagery I thought was kind of funny.
Dude, that's one hell of a plastic surgeon right there.
Exactly.
And like the clear climax of the film, though, is when the hot babe goes downstairs and sees Gregory, and she says, "Ooh, a man."
Oh yeah,
because he taught her. He said, "Dude, you have sex with men. That's your thing, by the way. That's just what you do. That's what." And yeah, she sees another one, and he was like, "Greg, I told you to stay away from her." And it wasn't his fault. Greg was hanging out in the basement.
She could like have sex with me, just me.
And
right?
I think he's even denying it at first, right? Too. So he's like, man,
just down there chilling.
It's your lady. It's not your best friend.
He's literally hiding in the basement with his bunny rabbit, smoking his cigar, drowning his sorrows in whiskey. Greg is awesome.
Greg's just trying his best, man.
And then she comes downstairs and hugs him. Yeah, and then right behind, all of a sudden you obviously you have Dr. Brandon, who's like, well, this is just unacceptable. Greg is clearly trying to fuck my corpse wife.
Right.
And
so he takes a big ass cleaver and he chops him right in the fucking hump.
Oh. Yeah, he gets rid of that hump.
Poor Greg. And then
swirls him into a vat of
acid.
Acid in a tub. Yeah.
He gets the worst death, probably, to be honest.
And he didn't even do the thing that he was mad at him for. So I was like, man.
It's wild because, hack to the hunchback, acid in the face, and then a tub of acid just to really be sure.
Yeah.
Greg got a raw deal.
That is a good gore sequence, though. I will say, like when it starts to rise, the body starts to go up and down above the water line or the acid line, and you can see it just, the skin is peeling off and everything like that. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, wait, is that why he's in prison at the end? Did they catch him for murdering Greg?
Maybe that's what it is, but I swear to God, there's no scene that actually says that.
No,
so I was very
he never gets around. I was trying, because the end of this does become a little like around this point where I was like, I was at least understanding what was happening in the movie. I could on a basic narrative level, I was like, okay, I get it. But around the scene where she tries to fuck the overweight furnace cleaning guy, and it turns into like a 70s softcore porno situation where like she's seducing him in a bathing suit, and he's like, "You want to go for a ride in my truck?" And
he's just a tall, big ass lunkhead.
Yeah, but it was the immediate cut to that guy in a bar, sad, and I was like, "Wait, what happened?" I was like, we didn't wait, what?
I think this is the most that they did. And this is what I mean, I guess, by the poor things. It felt like what they were trying to say is that now she's just going to go around and make these guys fall in love with her because she's the perfect woman and she's going to ruin all of their lives. That's what I thought it was.
So she broke his heart and he's crying at the bar now.
Yeah. So when she gets in the car at the end with the hippie dude in the van, it's supposed to establish like this guy's next. She's like now a serial killer with her sex appeal, I guess.
She's an emotional criminal.
Yeah.
Second wieners.
She's just breaking hearts and having great sex
countrywide
around North Carolina.
Not the most coherent. Where was that shot? North Carolina.
It was. I believe.
Yeah. That's where he's from, I believe.
Yeah.
Not the most coherent film.
No, well, because then he's like wide-eyed and monologuing in prison, or is he in prison, or was it supposed to be like some sort of asylum? There's some lady like scrubbing the floor, and I had no idea. But
this is a point of pride as a guest to your podcast. I think I've brought the most incoherent dog shit in the history of your program. Maybe.
I actually don't know if that's true. There's probably some competition. I feel like Will Sloan always tries to bring on something that like
one of the pornos that we watch is probably slightly more incoherent, but this is up there. This is probably top 5 for sure.
Episode 3 of when I return, I'm gonna fucking.
Oh, he's gonna nail it. This is a challenge now.
Bringing an incoherent porno film.
Oh my god.
It's like,
there's like the closing sequence. He's in prison. He's ruminating over his various mutilations, and they do this like brackage fucking montage overlaying all the gore at once.
That was the most like experimental touch in the whole movie. I went, dude, what the fuck? I was like, this guy clearly wanted to be an editor or something. It was the editing was like the only thing where I was like, it's given the movie a tiny bit of a pulse.
He did this gore thing. He did what he wanted to do, and he's like, I'm done with it. I'm done with this movie. Let's have him be in prison.
Yeah.
He's
And the idea of him
ranting in prison and talking about how he's going to be together with his beautiful darling and take her to the finest restaurants and nightclubs and get high on dancing and champagne. But then also a clapboard appears in one of the last shots as the guy employee is like, you want to go see some wrestling? And literally I guess he didn't have another shot. There was no shot of this sequence, no coverage of that conversation, which is really important to the narrative, by the way, that there's just some woman cleaning the floor who goes on a date with a guy.
Yeah.
And he was like, we really need to wrap this plot up. So we're going to include the shot with the clapboard in it.
I'm remembering
to finish it.
A detail that I find more confusing because it looks like a jail cell, like what we were talking about. But then one of you guys mentioned that it could have been an asylum, and they do have a conversation where they mention someone else in a cell that's having like delusions of some kind. So I don't know. I guess it could be an asylum the way that they talk about it. But again, it's the way it's designed and the way that everything happens. But again,
how he got there is unclear. Like, we don't know.
Yeah, he's like in a small closet with bars on it.
Yeah. Did someone call the cops on him for murdering his hunchbacked assistant? We don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Perhaps.
I do like him reminiscing about all the murder, like him just thinking back on it in a glorious montage.
Beautiful times.
Yeah, that's funny, and I did like that. But
because it's also cut together with the images in the park, right? So it does become kind of romantic. You're just like, oh man, romantic times of chopping women up with my pal that I murdered for my creature hugging him.
And it's to romantic music, if I'm not mistaken, too. So there's definitely a built-in irony that I think Patterson is doing. It's just that I wish the narrative in this moment was a little bit more coherent, just in the sense of like how he got here, like what exactly he feels about the woman now. It all happens very quickly in this ending, and So
damn, what a classic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Oliver, for Dr. Gore, or How to Make the Perfect Woman, which if we're pivoting towards the reductive rating round, this one ended up definitely in the 2 territory for me. But I will say, it was, I thought about it. I was sitting there being like, there was some stuff that I kind of like, if the ending was maybe a slight bit more on the coherent side, or if it kind of wraps
there's no rubric where this is a good movie.
No, I don't think so. There's a quality that, again, there's a level of ineptitude that if there's a passion behind it and there's an imagination behind it, that I find the strange and dreamlike qualities of making something accidentally kind of interesting, which is where Ed Wood falls for me. I spent this whole movie thinking about that and being like, dude, Ed Wood and Herschell Gordon Lewis, they could have made a sick movie together. And so I spent the whole movie trying to convince myself I liked it more than I did. Unfortunately, I think over the course of the movie, despite the, modicum of, goopy gore, which I always appreciate, of absolute weirdness being made by some just wacky middle-aged dude who wanted to, make a chintzy tinfoil mad science lab where he chop people up. And even the idea of having a grumbling hunchbacked assistant who he mostly just like kicks and abuses and, says, put on your lab coat to cover up your hunch, and it's just weird shit. I just wish I had more atmosphere. I think a movie like this needs to actually have the surreal horror quality, and I was surprised at how kind of flat it was. It does. It's so padded out. The worst part is that there's hints of like he's aiming for irony and he's aiming for a joke. He wants to have a weird romantic montage with his, weird corpse bride. And that's a cool idea, but you need to put the work in to at least making it pay off in some kind of way. And that to me was the turning point when I went, he's like, you get the one gag of him being the best plastic surgeon ever and turning all of these gory pieces of women he's handpicked in a really elaborate way that he doesn't need to do, and the fact that you just get the one gag that she's just a perfectly normal good looking woman by the end of it. But after that, it's so disappointing because all of these scenes would be much more interesting if she actually either acted or was made up to be a little bit more like an actual Frankenstein corpse bride in some kind of capacity, and because nothing else about the filmmaking signals that. And the whole lyrical romance montage, I think I would actually like if it was him hanging out with like a very pale woman who had stitches and was like, trying to make it work and try, that would
definitely.
actually, I think, that would actually, there would be something there. But it doesn't quite get there. So I think for now, there's a little bit of strange factor. There's a little bit of gore. There's a little bit of some charming ineptitude. If you like this kind of thing, go for it. Otherwise, you're probably fine sticking with Frankenhooker, which to me is the exact same premise done in a way more imaginative and technically ambitious and competent way, and actually kind of addresses the gender politics at the center of it, which is obviously gross. I don't think that the guy is like totally clueless or anything, but there's other movies that know how to address it, and we'll talk about it even in the next one, which I think manages to address it a little bit better because they just make it,
gender.
They make him the bad guy.
Yeah. 100%. I think I'm going to give it a very, like, it's a strong 2, to be honest. I almost liked this movie. It's just that it falls flat in too many areas.
Jamie was hypnotized by America's #1 magician.
Almost. For me, it was the pacing. It was like, you know what? If he just kind of streamlined a lot of this more so and stopped padding it out so much and really just, I understand he's probably like, it needs to be a certain length to get a certain type of release at the time or whatever the case is. I think at a 60-minute edit would be okay. You know what I mean? It would be much more acceptable. I just think a lot of these things are
something this bad with this kind of content. When you cut it below a feature length, it becomes fetish pornography.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, it probably wouldn't even be a movie if he cut out certain things, but it still probably would be a better film regardless.
Sure, totally.
Yeah, but. So I did find it interesting. I think he passed away in 1974, 1975, and then this film was lost for a while. So I don't think he ever got to see it be released. And I just I find that interesting. I would be curious. There's just not much information on it, so I'd be curious to see if he had it all finished before he passed away.
Yeah,
as
one
well.
of the weird things about this guy is that his certificate of death is on his IMDb for some reason.
Oh yeah, it is.
So
yeah.
I am very aware that he died of a metastatic malignant melanoma.
Oh damn! Jesus.
Pronounced that incorrectly, but that was what he died. If you want to know.
Wow.
I noticed that there was
those sunny park shots, you can see him being murdered by the sun.
Yep. There you go. Yeah, it's literally his only photo on IMDb. Someone was just like, "Here's proof that he's dead." By the way, his family uploaded this.
We got him.
That is wild. But yeah.
His full name, by the way, Junius Gustavius Patterson.
Damn.
Should have went with that. That's sick.
That is, yeah. He should have just went the full thing. That's that, and he's the junior. So there's another one. There was another one at one point. So anyway, so yeah, I think so. I do think the pacing is kind of bad. But I do think that some of the humor works when it's clearly purposeful. Some of it is a little confusing on whether or not he was diving into the irony, but when it is obvious, I really did enjoy it, and I thought that it was funny. The gore is great, honestly, for at least the budget and the time period. I thought he did a good job and had a lot of really cool little tricks. Mostly him.
There's definitely some like raw chicken in there.
yeah, absolutely. Just some raw meats with red paint. It's a beautiful thing. It does. The thing about this is that it kind of lacks that strangeness, that weirdo community quality that a lot of these have. And I think that's also kind of what's holding it back a little bit of it's like unique style, even if it would be, incompetent, you want to see some of that weirdness shine through. And I think it's lacking a little bit in that department as well. And even like if they wanted to have her have a complex with the fact that she's not perfect right away, if he's making her out of all these different body parts. There could even be something where, he's touching her up as the relationship progresses, and that creates a complication. Even she could start questioning him on why he's doing it. He could be turned off initially by the
that would make
scars.
her a character, though. You're misunderstanding what he's doing.
Of course.
She's not a character.
Needs something else to happen in the film. Anything else.
Exactly. So those are my hangups. I do think that there's something of value here. It's just it doesn't quite get to something that I like. So 2 out of 5.
For you,
Oliver? At 5, I'd say maybe 1.5.
Nice.
I thought he was going to go with a 5.
It's kind of sleepy. It'll put you to bed.
It is a little sleepy. Yeah. Just takes too long for certain things.
Yeah, it's a kind of a bedtime, 1950s leftover.
Yeah, see, Frank Henenlotter had the right idea when he was like, I'm going to wake the audience up. What if my prostitute characters smoked super crack and then their dismembered leg turned into a missile and started flying around the room?
Who did Bride of the Reanimator? Was that Yuzna?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
I think that, yeah.
I've not seen that, actually.
Oh, this is very Bride of the Reanimator.
I'm going to have to check that out. Maybe we have other good examples of guys reviving this specific subgenre.
Not bad.
I agree with you, Josh. I think someone needed to smoke super crack in this movie. I agree.
I mean, I think that about every movie, so it's not just this one. It's not a everyone drink that. Every movie should have some super crack. Yeah. But that's gonna, I think, wrap it up here for Dr. Gore. We're gonna be right back, and you're gonna want to stick around. We're gonna be talking about you guessed it, Dr. Death.
These women have just seen their doctor, Dr. Death. He stalks the city through the dark of night.
I think somebody's coming toward my apartment.
He has powers more terrible than any man who ever lived. Don't answer your doorbell.
What do you want?
It may be Dr. Death making a house call. Rated R.
All right, we are back, and we are talking Dr. Death, Seeker of Souls, the 1973 American absurdist horror film directed by Eddie Saeta, written by Sal Ponte, and starring Barry Coe as a grieving husband who, in an attempt to reincarnate his wife, goes for help from one John Considine as the titular Dr. Death. Already a red flag that his name is Dr. Death, but it's all good.
Definitely.
He just turns out to be a flamboyant 1,000-year-old serial killing magician who has figured out how to be immortal by transferring souls from one body to another via murder. And things get a little bit dicey from there.
He's got a little ball of poppers he keeps around his neck. He huffs this smoke.
Oh, yeah. He's... What a character. I'm very excited to talk about this one. This is the one and only film directed by Eddie Saeta, a guy who had apparently risen from being a messenger boy in the Hollywood studio system all the way to an assistant director, and who made many movies in that era, including for real directors, Sidney Pollack, Buzz Kulik, Joseph Sargent, among others, who were making noirs and westerns in the 50s and 60s. He also did a number of Three Stooges two-reelers and features and became friends with them, which is why this movie features the last ever Mo Howard performance as the magician show volunteer right before he died in 1975. But so he worked on that's what that was. Yeah. So he was on a whole bunch of movie sets from basically the 1940s through the 1960s. And apparently while toiling away on sets, he dreamed of making a horror movie. That is how it goes. He really, he had an idea for one, and he kind of dreamed of having his own iconic horror character, who he, I think, kind of viewed in the same way that Corman and Price were doing at American International Pictures, which is where he actually tried to get this film released, because I guess he felt it kind of slotted in beside some, he's like, kids who are going to the drive-in to go and see Vincent Price do a spooky voice in a castle, they might also enjoy my new character, Dr. Death, which is, is a bit of a passion project for him. He had an idea for a fan favorite horror character. He even apparently had sequel ideas and all kinds of stuff, which is why the movie even sets that up. And so,
and
yeah,
you know what? It's
I would have watched it.
Bad.
I would have watched it. Absolutely.
Totally.
You know, this was a goofy and very fun little curiosity, and made by a guy who has worked on movie sets and like knows how to get his coverage and knows how to get his actors how to do stuff. So immediately you're like, you know, the upgrade is to like 70s campy TV movie elegance. But it's elegance,
which
nonetheless.
Feels like fucking, after Dr. Gore, it feels like fucking Barry Lyndon.
Oh my God, dude. I was like, this is what real directing is. As soon as I switched, I was like, dude, look at the framing. Look at the pans. Look at these zooms. Listen to that groovy, jazzy score that it's got. Apparently, the cinematographer who shot Mean Streets shot this for some reason.
Wild.
So yeah, this has got some stuff kind of going for it, and it even, by the way, at the time that it came out in 1974, it got a sort of positive review from Jonathan Rosenbaum, which I was actually surprised to. His review was very funny. It was basically just the entire synopsis of the movie, like he was rewriting because he was trying to make you believe that this was a real movie that he watched. Because obviously, in 1974, you had to take a critic at their word that they were describing the movie correctly to you. And he describes the entire movie, and he basically spoils it. Like, he said, from front to back, he tells you what the whole movie is, and he does that, issuing it as both a recommendation and a warning, saying that the general vulgar outrageousness of it, that on first glance he couldn't figure out if it was like intentional humor or he said it didn't matter. It was besides the point. His words: "The spectator who brings a properly black frame of mind to it may well be entertained by its delightfully demented enthusiasm."
That's true, because like after Dr. Death decides that, you know, he needs to keep murdering to fulfill this ritual that he is so known for. It just becomes like an endless montage of that, and to the point where it becomes so quickly paced that it does become funny. And
like wacky necrophilia.
Yeah.
It's there's some wonderful vibes, I think, emanating off of this one.
Out.
And you know what? Both movies open at a funeral. So there you go. You have some connections right off the start. In this case, though, it is that of Fred Saunders, played by Barry Coe. 670s mop, 670s turtleneck sports coat combo that he's rocking throughout the entire movie. His wife Laura has just died in a hospital bed after also being in a car accident. I almost forgot that detail.
Yeah, he's looking like an extra in Rockford.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he keeps going to her grave, so grief-stricken that he can't bear to lock the tomb even, because he keeps wanting to revisit her and go. And when he tries to sleep, he wakes up in these like half dreamy dazes where she's in some sort of wedding gown reaching for him, being like, I'll come back to you. And then she's maniacally laughing and she's a skeleton, and Dr. Death, as the credit sequence.
Pretty good optical effect of like the skeleton face projected on her.
Yeah.
It is.
I really liked it. And it
like a really old school Hollywood effect.
And it mixes well because she's already kind of got that like transparency to her where she looks faded like a ghost. And so it almost creates this other dimension like quality to it when it's just pasted onto her face.
There's some real kind of
right away when I was like, where was
the
the dreaminess? Where was the surrealness? That's what I was everything that I wanted out of Dr. Gore, I immediately went into this, and I was like, let's fucking go. It's all here. And you know what? The main character is actually kind of sympathetic. He's in this lonely state. He's just desperate to bring his wife back because he loved her so much. And I like that they even set up like the pathetic side of all of this, where he's like going to seances to reach her, which are these obviously like staged hustles trying to like take advantage of grieving people, where they have like a woman, I'm your wife, and just like off stage he just whips the curtains. He's like, hold on.
My favorite detail in that seance is when the young guy is just like, she's like, I have channeled your grandmother, would you like to speak to her? And he's just like, no. And he looks clearly like afraid of her.
Is that the same guy who's also like, my grandmother's dead? And she's like, I'm talking about your other grandmother. Or no, my grandma's alive. Like, I'm talking about your other grandmother.
I just found it funny. He keeps trying to push it away. Like, I know which grandmother you're talking about, and I do not want to speak to that woman. It's very funny. I really enjoyed that.
The other, and see, this is where the humor of the movie, I was like, oh, he's being fun. Like, I actually didn't understand what Jonathan Rosenbaum was saying when he said he couldn't tell what was supposed to be funny and what wasn't. I was like, this is funny.
Yeah.
Like this is actually like the one where he goes to the guys of the Society of the Dead who claim to have brought a man's wife back from the dead, but they literally only just dug up her corpse and ashes, which the guy grabs in his hand. He's this wide angle lens. He's like, "Isn't my wife lovely?" He's like, ashes are coming out of his hand. I was like, not only is it kind of creepy,
blind old prospector going,
yeah, like it's kind of creepy, but it's done in like that really over the top, like a guy who grew up on old horror stories kind of way and like made it to the 1970s. And that was what I liked so much about this movie, was that it felt like it had one leg in like the old Hollywood, like a hammy actor monologuing in a cape. That's what was scary at one point, you know, for audiences. Then the other foot is in the gory exploitation stuff.
Totally.
Yeah, and to be honest, what's funny that you said like someone monologuing in a cape or something. There's one part where it's Greg and the lead, Fred, I believe, or Fred and Greg, the two guys, and Greg's his Fred's like best friend. They're on the run and they're trying to get to we'll get to it, but it's his assistant that he's dating and whatever. But when they're running into the car, there's almost like this beat, this bass line that is exactly what they use for the Batman theme from the 60s. And so it has this like kind of upbeat, ironic sense to it, even though we're watching someone about to get bled out or whatever it is. So it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like some of it's like story elements and some of it's like actual horror sequences when we get to them. Like they're very lurid, they're very gross, they are designed. And actually part of the graphicness of this movie actually gave it a hard time finding distribution, because for 1973 there was some stuff in here that was like, yeah, you're you know, he tried to sell it to American International Pictures, being like, you could slot this in with like your Corman Poe movies, and they were like, nah, we don't really want it, you know, like actually. And we think that, you know, I don't know if it was like a tonal thing and they felt it was too absurd, or if they thought it was too gross because of, you know, we'll talk about
the amount of death. You know, like there's at one point it's just so many murders happening where
there's a montage of death.
Yeah, whereas even with Corman movies that we've talked about, where there is kind of like a multiple, like there's multiple people dying, it isn't in such a short sequence. Like at one point it's almost comedic the way that Dr. Death is like, I need another body. Yeah,
Dr. Death kills a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah,
he gets some work done.
Yeah,
he's a hard worker.
Yeah, well, and Fred eventually meets him because, I mean, his doctor friend Greg, played by Stuart Moss, is trying to get him to accept that his wife is dead. He needs to move on, let her rest in peace. And he's just like, I don't know how or when, but she's coming back to me. And he's not able to abandon this dream of bringing his wife back. And his assistant Sandy, played by Cheryl Miller, is trying to get him like interested in a living girl like her. You know, I do love the detail of the photo of his wife on the desk that stares at him down anytime she goes in there, being like, I'm your cute assistant. Do you want to like go out on a date with me? Or, you know, like all this kind of stuff. She eventually gives him the ad section of the paper where beautifully it reads, "Control your own reincarnation," in all capital letters. He immediately, without missing a beat, grabs that phone on his desk, calls it up. He's like, I need to know what you guys are saying. What are you guys talking about over here? And he meets with the representative of a magician who can apparently bring the dead back to life, named Tana, played by Florence Marley, who I realized the last time I had seen her, she's the alien vampire in the John Saxon and Dennis Hopper movie directed by Curtis Harrington, Queen of Blood, which was produced by Roger Corman, actually. And it's a movie that sounds sick because it's a sci-fi B horror movie that almost has the same premise as Alien, where like they go into space and they find like a monster in space, but it's actually really dull. But she's kind of fun in it, and she gets to kind of ham it up a little bit. And in this one, she gets to do something similar, especially with the outfits, where she almost looks like an opera singer crossed with like a bullfighter or something.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I just realized too, she plays a small part in The Astrologer. If you remember that one, Josh, that's a weird one.
What a movie!
That one is a wild movie. Yeah,
that's movie magic. The Astrologer.
I also just wanted to briefly say, because I thought it was funny before he meets with this lady, that I think pretty much verbatim his dialogue when he calls after he sees the ad, he's just like, yeah, I saw your ad in the paper about reincarnation. I just thought that sentence So funny to say seriously. But anyway.
Yeah. No, this is legitimately a funny movie, and I think if you don't pick up on it in the early scenes, when like clearly, you know, like the Fred character is the straight character. He's taking everything around him seriously. His emotional pain is serious. The actual things he's trying to do. There's obviously some humorous gags and some of like the fraudulent side characters he's been interacting with, but it became so apparent what tone this movie is supposed to have, and I think it does successfully have for a lot of it, when you actually meet Dr. Death, played by John Considine, in his sick manicured devil beard, his incredibly shiny gold fit with the red ascot and everything, who just puts on such an intense performance of his skills with a sense of just poise and showmanship. And I had to look up an interview with him to find out what he was. And he basically said that, look, he thought the script actually was bad. He didn't like it, but he said, I was a working actor. I wanted a part, and I read the dialogue and I thought it was really silly. And I just felt that I gave it what it was looking for, or like what it needed in order to not, you know, he was like the theatricality. He was like, I don't see any way to deliver these lines other than the theatricality of it. And he did. I think that 100% that I think,
I actually watched it with the, I got a copy of it with the director or audio commentary had with Scotty Spiegel.
Oh, nice. With some good tidbits in there.
And with Considine.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, it sounded like they smoked a lot of reefer and had a good time when they made this film.
Yeah, he had nothing but good things to say about the economical practice of actually making the movie. He was like, yeah, the director, he clearly knew how to fucking manage a set, and he did it in like one take half the time, and, you know, he made it very cheaply. But he... Oh,
totally. He had some great kind of old Hollywood stories, but his brother, Tim Considine, who was... one of the three sons of My Three Sons, and all this Western bullshit he was in. Oh, yeah.
Oh, but I just think it was such the right move to be like, I'm going to play this like Vincent Price would or something. Like it's a serial killing supernatural magician. But what if I play him like a cheap huckster, like snake oil salesman with just like... There's
a bit of Bugs Bunny to him.
The way that he over enunciates, the way that he uses his eyebrows and his eyes, every time he does a physical gesture, like that first one where he rips the sheet off the corpse that he plans to reanimate, it's this incredibly flamboyant, exaggerated, like his arms are still in the air for seconds longer than they have to be, and he's staring at the audience. He's putting on a show, and he says it actually comes from a time when he occupied a body of an actor. He's like, I've been a ham ever since, you know?
Yeah. And like, which is like a great contrast, because like the quote unquote leading man, the guy's wife died, he's a bit of a stiff.
Yes, he is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
ironically,
kind of plodding through it, and here comes this fucking cartoon.
It almost works because of Considine just doing exactly what he's doing. That Barry Coe is a little bit more, a lot more laid back, and just kind of.
This is a normal human man who's been alive for 30 whatever years, and compared to a 1,000-year-old wizard.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so much.
He just wants his wife back, man. He's like, he doesn't care who has the powers to do it, you know.
Yeah, and I do like the stuff that's kind of the classic horror tropes that are built into it. Like, for example, he's got the creepy butler assistant that just seems like, you know, he answers the door, he's barely speaking, he's giant,
the tongueless hulking mute.
Yeah,
like Thor, just completely unable to keep the police from entering the house.
Not the best bodyguard for sure.
Kind of mediocre with throwing knives, if we're being honest too.
That's true. He was only 1 for 2 when we do see him in action, you know.
Yeah, and he doesn't hit a single cop either. He doesn't even get to take a shot. Yeah.
I mean, if it's Greg the Hunchback, I forget the name.
Or Thor, the mute giant.
Yeah, Considine said like he kind of played it. Like he didn't talk on set ever. He sort of played it. You know, he didn't say method, but he said he really got into it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Sometimes they would after a shot he would turn around and he'd say, "That's a good one, yeah."
I love that. Oh my god,
that's awesome. That's how you know you're making a good movie. When everyone on set is like, a take is finishing. We got our one take. We hammed it up. We had a great time. And, you know, and you clearly have a director also who just like knows what shots he's looking for and like what he wants, you know, like the actual.
He's a working man. He pumps shit out. He knew what to do.
Yeah, and he chose deliberately like a character who has a staginess to him. So even when the photography is just like a flat shot, it's like at least the production design is sort of interesting. He's on stage. There's a spotlight on him, like the sequence when he's like planning to prove.
Eyeballs are just
Oh my god! Or his outfit is insane and colorful and just wild it is
really. I think
there is a touch of vibes to it.
Yeah, and like you said, Josh, he's got a showmanship because he's a magician built into he's a magician, so that's built into his character. And so it's funny that he never takes that stage persona away, no matter who he's talking to in the film. He acts the same way he is when he's presenting the girl that he's going to saw in half.
He acts that way when he's alone in a crypt.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah, he just doesn't turn it off. This is just who he is.
Yeah,
He's
well,
fabulous.
I mean, you know exactly what to expect from this movie, I think, from the sequence where he does prove his power to everyone by bringing a woman back to life, where he's like, in a few moments, you will see a demonstration, the likes of which I can assure you have never seen before, of supernatural powers I have perfected that will amaze beyond your wildest expectations. And in order to prove that the body of this beautiful woman on stage is dead, he asks for a volunteer to listen to the lack of a heartbeat, and jumps up Mo Howard of the Three Stooges going, I will, very adorably, and listening to it being like, that woman, she's dead.
Peanut of an old man. Yeah.
That's for sure. That woman is there dead. Yeah. And then he reveals, and on the other side of the stage, I have this horrifically scarred woman on the brink of death. Literally, he's like, I might as well have just said, I just pulled her out of a house fire 2 seconds ago. And here she is underneath this fucking sheet. And her head is gruesomely charred and mangled and sticking out of this magician box that you commonly see when they're going to pull the trick where they saw a woman in half. And my favorite detail where I went, oh, I know what I'm in for, was he's like, now I'm going to kill this woman and put her soul into the body of like this woman who died too young and is beautiful and has a body that can still be used. And it's like, obviously it's kind of he's showing it as like, I'm a good Samaritan. This is something that we could use. Like, this isn't a kind thing. If only doctors could do this, essentially. But he's a fucking magician. So he's like, now I'm going to saw her literally in half and you're going to watch her die in a live studio audience, by the way. And they do it so slowly. They're like, and she's like, ah.
And it cuts to like old man Mo Howard sitting in the front row, just horrified.
And before this too, they do this weird like ritualistic mantra or whatever with the audience, almost like they are accepting what they're about to see or something like that. It's almost like a church chant or mantra that they go through. So I can't tell if it appears that the audience is used to this. It's like normal for them because they know of what he does, or if, it's part of his power of charisma. I wasn't totally sure, but
he is a very charismatic guy. And he's also a very sexual guy, which we'll get into as well.
Totally.
He's Dr. Death has a lot going on behind the scenes of this selective reincarnation tool that he has invented, which is literally just murdering someone and then being like, hey, that soul, you go over there, go into that one. That's literally the kind of the extent of his trick.
And I love one time it doesn't work. The soul doesn't want to go in.
It's true. Actually, a lot of times it doesn't work. And he's very upset about it.
So mad. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love Fred watching the first one. He's like, this is murder. He's so offended, obviously. He's like, I just watched a woman get sawed in half. And then I love the woman's like, this is not a courtroom. It's theater. You bring the cops, man. You won't, you won't get anything done there. And then obviously Dr. Death is like, did you want that woman to live in a horrifically scarred body the rest of her life? Look at her. Now she's beautiful and she's happy. And,
Yeah. As he's also telling the the older woman that it seems like he had a connection with, that he's now going to pursue the younger one, and that she's useless for being old and all of that.
Yeah.
So he just goes back and forth between his.
He has the same thing about
his,
Dr. Gore, where he's like, I found a new young lady who's going to be my new sexual plaything now. Only she's not like an idiot child who I am morphing into my, you know, my perfect wife. It's just like this woman who's like extremely quote unquote grateful. How grateful are you to your doctor?
Yeah.
Do you like your new body?
I do like that they made the decision too that she doesn't become like obviously she kind of does become the same character in a sense that you see in Dr. Gore, but what expands it a little bit is having Dr. Death have the complex of not being able to continue doing the reincarnation with Fred's wife, and so it starts to focus on him being like impotent in his he's
not happy about that.
So I like that there's a bit further of a dynamic to wrestle with than there is with Dr. Gore.
Well,
so
this is what happens when like someone's like aware of the gross factor of the character and is kind of playfully using it. He's like, we're making him kind of like, did he learn this power because he wants to be immortal, or did, you know, which is part of it, or did he learn this power because it picks up chicks, you know?
And we know the answer.
He kind of walks that line. Well, and also the desire, obviously, for Fred even is like, you know, he's shocked and horrified by what he's witnessed, and he knows that it's kind of perverse and wrong in some way, but he goes, you know, I'm desperate enough, and my wife Laura is dancing around me like a ghost, taunting me everywhere. So clearly I need to do something about
him,
this.
Like following her ghost through like the street to the crypt.
All the way to the tomb. It's actually kind of beautiful.
I loved it. Yeah, and I like again it has a sense of kind of style and timing and pacing, because I love when he's chasing her and he's in normal speed, but she has the kind of transparent ghost feeling, but she's moving slightly slower, like she's in a different, you know, it like in a different dimension,
it's like
and time is
CBS
different.
1970s TV movie like Cocteau.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool. I loved that sequence. Really pretty and haunting.
Well, and that stuff is, I think, an interesting counterpoint to Dr. Death, because, you know, like, obviously Fred's doing this for more emotional reasons and more sympathetic reasons. And, you know, Dr. Death gets so distracted by this beautiful girl sort of like dancing in front of him in the same way, like his wife is dancing in her gown all the way to her tomb. And then it cuts to literally like this new woman dancing in the mirror in front of him in her lingerie, you know, and he's basically like, I will be back shortly to examine the extent of your gratitude. And, you know, it's so making gross. Him, you know, very, very creepy, and obviously implying he gets inappropriately sexual out of his magical powers. Similarly to Dr.
Timothy
Brandon.
Leary, it's a bit, you know.
Yeah.
It's a bit Manson.
Yeah.
And but Constantine is having so much fun with the performance despite being gross, that the character does remain pretty charismatic pretty much the entire time. And one of my favorite sequences is that long monologue where he explains his powers. He's like, I must confess, I love telling this story. And it's, you know, there's literally this like wipe that comes across the screen, and it does this sepia toned cutaway flashback to what kind of looks like a Hammer horror production or like a Corman Poe movie, where he was a medieval doctor, and he tells the story. He's like, I was dying. I was looking for a way to transfer, you know, my departed soul into the body of my young and handsome peasant apprentice using this formula and this poison. And he's like, no time for class distinctions. It was time to challenge the impossible. And so I committed my first of many of what you call murders. And then it turns into this hilarious
montage. He
montage.
get his very nice cape. Yeah.
Yes. But the montage part of it was my favorite part, of him just aging and dying and transferring into all of these different bodies briefly.
It's like, listeners, you know the Michael Jackson music video Black and White? You know the bit where he morphs into various people?
Yes. It's the same thing.
Kind of that.
It's so
that's spot on. That's so funny.
It's so funny. I actually could not believe it that he was like, you know, so throughout the ages, I've kind of become quite progressive and quite curious, and I've murdered many different genders and races and tried their bodies out. And you see him stab a woman in the spine. And he's like, I actually quite liked being a lady, but then I went back to being a guy. And and then he's walking
his
through the
soul
smoke.
felt more comfortable in the man's
That's
body.
right.
Yeah.
Yes. But he's
Which
walking
is,
through this
kind of progressive for,
It kind of is for 1973.
He understood, yeah.
I was going to praise it for the progressive-ness of him saying that until he turned into the Japanese woman. And then it had the little actual score, the stereotypical
I didn't even
sounds.
realize, did they do the classic,
They
the
did.
Asian score thing? Oh my God.
Yes,
I didn't even notice
straight
that.
up. And then he dissolves into a cowboy at one point, and then he's a black man at one point. He's like, I've had riches, I've had power, but I prefer pleasure,
Yeah. Honestly, I would have. There's a movie built into that, the prequel, where it's just his rise to become Dr. Death, and I want to see little just eras of when he was a different person.
Potential
Dr. Death throughout the ages. It's just like Bill and Ted 2, but it's just
that actually. Yeah, yes, exactly. That actually reminded me of this. I wrote this down at the beginning because I think, Josh, you said something where it comes off like a TV movie or like a long TV episode in the sense of its style. But I am imagining like a TV series where he goes from different body every week to create havoc, and he's forced at the end of every episode to transfer again because of Fred.
Dude, I'd watch that TV show.
Yeah, absolutely.
They just couldn't get away with the gore.
Has a different commentary depending on who he's taking the body of.
Quantum Leap, basically, essentially, with like murder.
Oh, is that that's so funny you mentioned that, because my friend just sent me something. It seemed totally outlandish, but still kind of funny, where he was put into the body of like a Down syndrome person or something like that. Is Quantum Leap just unbelievably insane? I've never seen it.
It's an incredibly tacky TV show.
Okay. I didn't know if it was considered good or not, because when he sent me that, I'm like, how the hell did they get away with that? That is wild.
It was a very special episode. We learned a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he became, Rosa Parks. I forget. Yeah, it's.
Oh, boy.
I'm sorry. I have to watch this television show. That's ridiculous.
I would have seen Dr. Death become all of these various characters throughout time. There's definitely another movie. There's another TV show that they could have built out of that premise, but his story gets interrupted because as
I would like to see Dr. Death face off against Manimal.
There you go.
Dr. Death versus the werewolf.
I definitely think Saeta had a plan to get Dr. Death, versus characters having sequels.
Maybe Kolchak? Get Kolchak in the mix?
I would have watched it for sure. Columbo, investigating Dr. Death. I could have
$6 Million Man. Bill Bixby Hulk.
Yeah. We're coming up with all the pitches if this was a massive blockbuster success that it unfortunately was not.
A special episode of MASH where a mysterious Korean general is admitted to the
It would have been. I'm going to mourn this the same way I mourn that Blackjack TV show that Dolph Lundgren and John Woo were supposed to do together that only got the pilot turned into a movie.
Oh, yeah. Remember that? Blackjack?
Yeah, where he's scared of the color white and all the bad guys start throwing milk at him and shit.
Oh, good movie.
Actually, yeah. Considine, the main actor, he was good friends with Robert Altman. He
really?
He wrote screenplays for, and he appeared in a couple of shits like The Wedding.
Oh, damn.
Oh, wow. What else did he do? He did Free Willy 2, The Adventure Home. God damn.
Let's go.
Oh yeah, dude. He was the man at the bar in California Split. I don't that's his credit. I don't know exactly.
Bruce Cooper.
He was in. Yeah, he was in that maybe the best episode of the original Outer Limits, one with Gregory Peck, where he's that dude from the future. It's a good episode.
I would like to see more of him because I do really just love his entire energy throughout this movie.
Well, he was also apparently Commander Blake in Free Willy 2. So if you're interested, there's lots of Considine out there. I will say his white suit drip when he eventually comes back, he's like, I'll Fred, I've told you my powers. I've told you my past, my history. I can reincarnate your wife for the lowly price of $50,000, with Fred just not blink about in the 1970s, which is crazy to me. But it also coincides with, obviously, you know, Dr. Death's life kind of falling apart as is, because this, you know, he returns back to the beautiful reincarnated woman being like, it's time to have, you know, sex. And he's got his velvet house robe on. He's so stoked. But Tana has jealously thrown acid in her face for this new girl being his sexual plaything that she used to be. And she's very upset about that. And, you know, Dr. Death is immediately very upset about that and immediately goes, okay, well, I need to obviously do another reincarnation because that one is done. She's ugly again. She's deformed again, just like she was before. This is so upsetting. And so he decides, I'm going to help this guy out. I'm going to get his wife back. And he, as we've said, he just keeps fucking up the whole thing. And it does become into almost like an impotence comedy where he's like, dude, I swear you paid me $50,000 and I plan to do this.
And this has never happened before.
Yeah. And at first it involves throwing knifing Tana to death because he's very upset at her for acidically melting the face of his new girl. And he plans to move her soul into Fred's wife's body. He's like, you could do way worse as far as souls go. Tana's pretty cool. But she refuses to enter the body, even though he's like, I command you, enter that body.
It shows multiple sequences of Ghost just going nope and just walking away.
I will not go into that body. She is resting peacefully in that tomb. I am not fucking with that. And it's so funny that the first time it fails, Fred immediately realizes, wow, I probably shouldn't be messing with this shit anyway. That's probably,
this is fun.
You know, there's kind of a real evil history of serial murder I'm associating myself with to achieve this dream. And it's so funny. He kind of just changes his mind. He gets his money back. And obviously, and he just kind of goes, you know what? He has the realization we said Dr. Gore should have had. He's like, dude, my office secretary is pretty cute. What if I just like started dating her? What if I could be happy with her? Yeah. And you get a lyrical date montage of them going to the park and eating hot dogs and going to the zoo and all this kind of stuff. He's like, wow, what if another woman could make me happy?
Meanwhile, he set off Dr. Death in this like just being
spiral.
This impotent complex.
He's spiraling, dude.
Yeah, it's so funny
riding around town in the streets in his old ass car being like, we need to just kill as many women as possible in a single night to find a woman's soul who will go into Laura's
he's cruising
body.
around in his fucking Dr. Detroit limo with that dude driving in.
It's so and every time he gets out of a car, I'm like, don't speak to this man. Like he comes from a completely other era. Like when he gets out to help the young girl like change her tire, I was like, girl, do not talk to these guys. Look at their car. Look at the fucking bodyguard, fucking deformed mute.
Yeah.
Listen to the guy who's talking to you.
Mutilated and he's wearing like a leather vest.
Yeah.
Like a torturer. You don't want to,
And some of them
and
like...
He's like
I do like that there's like variations of him approaching these women. Like the one is just, you know, just goes onto the side of the road while someone has a broken down car. But then there's this other, there's two that one is pretty cool in the style. And then the other one I just found funny. The first one is when the girl is walking by the phone booth and he just is like waiting next to the phone booth with the phone and just like, and call the phone booth. And then he calls it, she answers. He does this weird interaction where he traps her in it and then kidnaps her and kills her.
And then describes her as a child who kisses better dead than Tana did when she was alive.
Right?
Yeah, that was a wild one. That was that was a wild one, Dr. Death.
The eye emoji was coming out on that one a little bit.
And then the other one that I did find
when
just
he
really
stabbed in the belly.
Oh yeah, that one's pretty crazy. But that might be the one that I'm talking about. But it's the approach that I'm talking about, where the girl is watching a horror movie and the imagery in the horror movie is matching his approach to her as he goes through the door frame and tries to kill her.
That's definitely one of the more technically like and deliberately playful like filmmaking sequences in the movie where she's literally she's like, I'm watching a horror movie, and she's like talking to her, I think her husband, like on the phone, her boyfriend or something. She's like, you know, I'm all alone, or wait, the woman on the screen, she's all alone, she's hearing footsteps, oh my god, that's her door. And it literally every single thing that's happening to the woman in the horror movie,
her lock is broken on her front door, just like mine.
And it's happening to her, and so it's cross-cutting between like this creepy dude walking in on this woman to kill her, and obviously Dr. Death approaching in his cape in the exact same sort of shots and walking over and strangling her to death. And you just have the guy on the other end of the line being like, honey, I wish you'd stop watching those late night horror flicks, you know, come on. You know, that's what's getting you strangled to death right now. I hope you understand. But no, I think Oliver's referring to the one where he interrupts the couple making out in the park, and the kid pulls out the switchblade and stabs Dr. Death in the gut, spraying his infected like black acid blood all over him, which through a series of dissolves melts his face like fucking Fulci style while he's like lying on the ground.
I really like
it melts it off, and then it bursts into flames.
Yes. That's a weird touch.
I was just gonna say the fact that it takes so much time for the thing to melt, and then they're like, and burst into flames also, just to add a little bit more to it.
It's a real treat for the viewer.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a cool.
It's quite
sequence.
the murder montage, I'll be honest with you.
And it's so quick because it's and that's what makes it funny, is because it's, you know, you get one of these murder sequences that we're talking about, and then it's a shot of him in the tomb, like go in the body, and then they won't, and then he goes back out, kills, repeat the cycle, and it honestly just gets funnier and funnier as his god complex gets more complicated.
Yeah, while also maintaining, like, you know, when it wants to in its horror moments, like actually being quite gross, like having him deliver that line he delivers about that girl, having him strangle the one woman pretty viciously, having his acid infected blood just like melt a dude's face until it catches on fire. When he eventually, because like none of the souls are taking, and he's really just becoming an unhinged like serial killing maniac, essentially piling up bodies at Laura's tomb where he's trying to reincarnate her, and he gets so fed up that he's like, I'm going to kill the girl from the first show because I know that her soul went into another body, so that must work. And he axes her basically in the side of the head, and the screen goes all red. But then it's this really gruesome shot of he sends her decapitated head in a box via like courier to Fred in his secretary's office with a little note that says, I'm still trying. And Fred's like, dude, I took my money back, and I said don't do it, I don't care, you don't need to do this.
It's like a couple trying to get pregnant or something. He's like, hey, I'm still trying.
It's like he's having a chat with his secretary. He's like, hey, you want to go out for dinner? Like, oh, hey, we got a cake box came over, and like they open it, crash zoom to this fucking mutilated head.
Yeah, it's gross.
Is wild.
I was kind of impressed, actually. That was like the most like impressive gory makeup effect in the movie, I think.
Oh yeah, it's pretty aggressive. It's awesome. I also really like then his decision is, well, none of this is working, so what I need is the same kind of strong soul that Laura has, but I need to take it with no violence, which essentially he gets to like torture, basically just letting blood run out slowly of a body until they finally die is his new plan.
Well, yeah, and he literally goes, I need a soul strong enough. Show me what it is. He's like asking God to like send him a vision, and he gets a vision of his secretary girlfriend. And, you know, so he was very much like, you know, Fred's now kind of concerned because he's like, yeah, this dude is going to kill my new girlfriend to try to bring back my wife, which I told him I don't even want him to do. I forgot about my wife. My new secretary is with her great apartment with her great cat. I love this woman.
He's like, just
I'm
take
totally
the 50 G's. Why won't he leave me alone?
Well, actually, I think he even gives him the 50 G's back because he's like, I didn't deliver you the product.
So he's just like, but I'm going to continue. Yeah,
he really cares about his brand, I think is what's happening here. He's like, dude, I'm Dr. Death.
He wants those 5 stars.
Yeah, I don't think you understand. I'm Dr. Death. I'm immortal. I can make anyone immortal. I don't like that your wife is fucking disobeying me. This is very upsetting to me. And it turns into this really strange finale, I will say, in terms of where they were trying to like milk tension from. Because at first it's Fred hides the girlfriend in the apartment. He's like, don't open this door for any weird madmen, by the way. Because there's a weird doctor who might try to, you know, in his red turtleneck show up at your place and be like, hey, what's up? I'm gonna kill you. Which he plans to do by bleeding her to death, because he recalls being a physician in a past life, and he was like, oh yes, I loved bleeding people. It was so wonderful, and I let her soul leave nice and slowly without the slightest ripple. You'll love watching a woman bleed to death, Thor. You know, and they
bleed so much blood out of her.
He does, and weirdly too, it's structured like a little like kidnapping, like car chase, like finale,
right.
which I was
it's like a
Batman 60s episode where Robin's in the tank filling up with water.
Yep.
And Batman's got to go find the Riddler before the, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, but did you guys? I mean, I think this was an intentional gag because it was so. It didn't make any sense, but like Fred and Greg are in the car together being like, we're going to go to the doctor's house, and they go there and they wait and they're like, well, the doctor's not home. So that's fucked up. So we need to leave and go and maybe go back to the apartment to go check on, the new girlfriend. And he's already kidnapped her at the apartment. He's like pretended to pose as Fred using his voice, and then, you know, breaks in and brings her back. And it's done in almost like this one shot where, you know, Fred and Greg pull out of his driveway and are like, hey, we're going back to the apartment. And immediately Dr. Death, having his kidnapped victim, pulls into his driveway and is like with the two people that, you know, that they're looking for. And the rest of the sequence is him, you know, bleeding her from the wrist into like this like beaker to measure out. And he's like, once you hit this point, you have bled enough blood that you will die. And all the rest of the sequence is the other guys driving back to the apartment where we know that she's not there because they missed her by literally 5 seconds.
Yeah. And again, that's where the Batman theme comes into play. So as they're getting into the car and he's pulling up, it's going like almost dun-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. And it's just, it is honestly hilarious. And in a way that, even if it isn't on purpose, somehow it comes off like it's supposed to be that way. And so
it has the rhythms of a TV movie at this point.
Yeah,
it does.
Absolutely.
Not like in a derogatory way.
No. Yeah, they're just hitting their markers.
Yeah, the tension of it is just very funny because it's so farcical, but not to the characters because they don't have the information that we have about what would happen there. But it just made the whole cross-cutting tension very funny to me because I was like, dude, you guys just literally just should have stayed parked outside the house for 5 seconds longer, and literally none of what's happening would be happening of them being like, oh my god, we got to get back to the house, she's not here, and they're pulling up with cops and there's a bunch of cop cars just following them. And
such is the fickle nature of fate, boys. You never know what's going to happen in this life.
Yeah. And the
sometimes you'll miss the immortal wizard doctor.
Well, and luckily the cops are there because they're the ones who break in, and you know they would have.
Well, he sends his hulking mutant.
I was like they might have been throwing knifed by Thor if they didn't have guns, or maybe he would have missed. We don't know.
He cannot keep the police out at all. They get it immediately, and they shoot him in 5 seconds.
Oh, he doesn't get a single cop. Yeah, you're just like, oh, there's not even much.
He just takes it out. Yeah, he's just like, here's my knife, and they're like, nope, let's shoot him 20 times.
Honestly, the Hunchback from Dr. Gore would have got more work done there.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, I think Greg would have put out a bigger fight.
Yeah, and they run down and they end up saving the Sandy character, the secretary, but Dr. Death just like sneaks out the back door and into a hippie Volkswagen.
Yeah, another hippie hitchhiker ride, just like Dr. Gore.
That's right.
And it's true. Look at so many connections going on here.
Kind of insanely.
Yeah. But this is that is Dr. Death was willing to be more imaginative and more progressive with his idea of what, you know, his pleasure in his life could be. So in the end, he's willing to transfer his own soul into Fred's wife's body. And he's like, I've come back, darling. Oh, yes, I've come. And we know how he felt about being in a lady's body. He was kind of cool with it, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
I would have watched that sequel where, you know, Fred's
Dr.
just like,
Death
hey,
knows how to party.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
Dude,
Gore does
Dr.
not
Death's
know
like,
how
I'm
to
going to
party.
fuck Fred. I'm going to blow up his relationship with his secretary.
He's like, oh, I'm not just going to kill you.
Motherfucker.
I'm going to make you love me, Fred. Oh my God.
That's what we needed to
Ultimate
see.
revenge. Fred, guess who I am, Fred? What's your penis inside of me?
Oh my God. I want that to be the finale so bad. That's so funny.
I mean, there was recently Heather Graham made a movie with my old bud from middle school, Graham Skipper. What was it?
I know the one you're talking about, where she goes into the body thing, right?
Yeah,
With,
it was
Barbara Crampton was in it.
Suitable Flesh,
Suitable Flesh. Yes,
which is sort of riffing on the same Lovecraft story that Dr. Death riffed off. The Thing on the Doorstep, about ancient wizards using spells to transfer their souls into new bodies.
Damn. Yeah, that was
one of the primal.
There was some
stories.
good body swapping erotic thriller stuff going on in that one.
Yeah, there's some decent moments. They're like a kind of an homage to that the Fulci movie Devil's Honey with the saxophone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've seen that, but the
There's
Fulci
a
and a
bit in this
saxophone.
Fulci erotic thriller saxophone
Jamie,
movie.
I could have sworn that you did. I thought we did it on we might have given an honorable mention on the end of the year episode or something, but maybe we didn't.
Oh,
the most memorable bit is the guy's a saxophone on a lady's vagina and he gets her off by playing the saxophone.
Oh, you're talking about the Fulci.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds magical. I hadn't seen that.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, I think there's a good new 4K whatever bullshit, ding dong, 60 frames per, whatever.
Well, hey now, Dr. Death, we should get a 4K.
Agreed.
Totally.
That's what we need. But yeah, that's Dr.
Dr.
Death.
Death. Out of 5, I would give that a solid 3.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in the same spot. I think we're all in the same spot. That is a 100%. That is a stronger 3 than I expected out of the movie. I will say
totally.
that.
I thought it was going to be more in the realm, just even in the sense of like its set design and everything. I thought it was going to be more like Dr. Gore or a how am I not thinking of this? Ed Wood's movie, something like that. But it's cheap for sure, but it did have a lot more competent editing and pacing and shots and all of that than I anticipated.
And acting. I enjoyed the actual I enjoyed the
time. I was surprised. I laughed. There was that head in the box.
This was a fun little curiosity for a movie that has less than 300 logs on Letterboxd. I was like, this
for sure.
People should be checking this out. Like the fact that just some Hollywood assistant director was just like, I'm going to direct one movie. And I want to make my own Vincent Price iconic horror character, but I won't bend on the amount of weird sex and gore shit that I'm going to put in the movie. So as a result, no one's going to be able to see this, and it's going to get lost in distribution hell, and it's never, it's really unfortunate. And I think that there's a lot to like here in terms of, it's shot and kind of put together in a campy B horror TV movie kind of way. But
big shit from genre names in the 70s that I would put this over.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A surprisingly cohesive double feature too.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised at how much they were dealing with the same situation on the ethics of murdering women to make other women. And but I will also say one of the main draws here is the Considine performance, who I think just absolutely in terms of maniacal, flamboyant theatricality, he totally goes for it.
It'll make you want to look up every other role he ever did.
Yeah. He leans into the charismatic over-enunciating. He leans into the weird sexual perversity of the character very gleefully. Everything is played up like it's the last scene he's ever going to act in, and he's, playing the most a traveling fucking snake oil salesman in terms of showmanship. He's really going for it. The beard, the ascots, the 70s outfits, he's rocking every single one of them. And yeah, I had an absolute blast with him. And I will say, when this gets horror, it kind of delivers. Like, there's a lot of great humor. There's a lot of great jokes that we've talked about. Like, I think the fraudulent spiritualist stuff and the guy fucking holding up his Ash wife being like, look at, they brought this back. It's so good. Or, you know, like there's a lot of humor to this movie, but in the few moments where it's like, we're going to make this kind of campy and ridiculous and exaggerate it, it still delivers on when he strangles someone, or when he saws a woman in half, you know, in front of a fucking studio audience, or when he decides he's going to fucking melt a kid's face with his blood, or decapitate a woman and send it as a present to be like, you know, hey buddy, don't forget me, you know?
Yeah.
There's a gruesomeness and a goofiness to it, and I think it's doing both deliberately, and I think it's actually mixing the tone well. I actually think he displays some control for a first time director, which is kind of surprising. So
like, he commits necrophilia, and you still kind of root for him.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to pull that off, and I think that shout out to Saeta. I think he absolutely does it. But yeah, very solid 3 for me, and also shout out to Constantine for the way that he delivers that one line when he goes up to the husband and wife couple who have just watched a scary movie, and they're sitting in a car, and the husband's like, I bet I could scare you like that. And he's like trying to scare her, and the wife is like screaming, but she's not screaming because of the husband. It's because Dr. Death is sneaking up behind him, and he kills them both. And then he goes, amateur. You know nothing of death, you know.
Fantastic. He's a performer through and through. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I do really enjoy this. I'd also give it a 3. It's just wild that one of the guys that shot Mean Streets shot this. Great turtlenecks, you know. It's
Sick
funny.
There's some good night photography.
Yeah. It understands pacing, even especially with some of the humor that's built into it, so it feels more purposeful than some of the gags that, whether or not they were purposeful.
Yeah, there is a repetition to it, but it's comedic repetition. It's psychotic.
Yeah, and the way that they do it too, like they're introducing him, you know, take a woman and kill her so that he can bring her soul into another body, and as the film goes on, it just becomes faster and faster and faster as he's doing that, and that honestly is a very funny joke in this very morbid sense. So I did like that, and yeah, just the implied finale that he's gonna go fuck Fred for revenge is hilarious to me. So yeah,
and he's gonna enjoy it because he's weirdly progressive.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
at least sexually.
Yeah, right. Movie. Happy Pride Month, boys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dr. Death. Yeah. Any last things to throw in, Oliver? You think we got it?
I think you boys got it. There's a couple weird ones. I think I was thinking, like, if I came back again, would I be able to find 2 more doctors? Absolutely, I would.
Yeah.
There's so many bullshit movies about doctors.
We look forward to it.
I'm sure that they're out there.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's gonna
Doctor Movies.
That's right. Doctor Movies, and also R.I.P. to Mo Howard. You know,
R.I.P. Mo Howard, Roger Corman.
There are so many worse movies that could be the last movie that you participated in, and especially if you were like, you know what?
What was the last movie that Chris Farley did? It was like that one with Matthew Perry where they're like in Western times or something. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen that, I don't think.
What is that one?
Don't watch it. Yeah.
I did not know that was
Almost Heroes by Christopher Guest.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Guess.
Not seen that one. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up, I think, here for Dr. Gore and Dr. Death. Thanks so much, Oliver, for bringing these films with you, and for dumpster diving with us as you do around here.
With me. That was a good time.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
Oliver, if you've got anything to plug while you're here, maybe your Twitter or your streams. I know that you watch a lot of trashy movies on your streams, so I think some people might be interested.
I'd like to plug. I think I'd like to plug my TV into the wall so I can watch the movies. I love watching that shit, huh? Yeah, baby. No, just
check out his art.
Police.
He's got a website.
Check out my art. Yeah, oliverleach.com.
That's right.
New series coming up, making some UFOs.
There you go.
I found one of my. The filmmaker George Kuchar. Do you remember him?
That sounds familiar.
He's a weird art house kind of like trash filmmaker. Yeah, he was one of my mentors back in grad school. I found all these UFOs he made. He told me this story once of like a Men in Black, like the UFO kind of archetype. Like he was thinking his dog just died in the 70s. He was thinking about jumping out a window. The Men in Black approached him and said, "George, we need you to live. You have art to make." And he said, "You're right." Awesome. And then he proceeded to cornhole the Men in Black. They had sex in his living room.
Oh, wow.
He fucked the Men in Black?
He fucked a Man in Black, yeah.
Dude. That's a gangster move right there.
Totally.
I just went to a weird place.
What was the movie? The Flesh of Poise. He made some wild shit.
Episode. I love it.
That feels right. It feels very fitting. I feel like for these movies, for the vibe that we've been in.
Nice. Yeah. Put that on his IMDb trivia page.
Yeah.
Yes. Someone get to it.
Thanks for having me, boys.
No, it's been wonderful. For our listeners, we're going to be back in 1 week's time where we are going to be doing your patron voted episode. That, speaking of which, means that we're going to be getting a new poll ready for the next one, as we usually do around the time that a new one drops. But next week, over on the Patreon, Blue Velvet and Serial Mom. That was your guys' episode that you voted for. We're looking under some of the dark and absurd things that are occurring underneath the veneer of the suburbs, I believe, is that double feature. And then in 2 weeks' time,
I love Serial Mom.
Me too.
I actually have never seen it.
She kills so many people, and she's so lovely, and she gets away.
Spoiler
with
alert: Serial Mom commits serial murder. I don't know. I don't know if I
think I
believe
approve of that.
Yeah, we'll see. In 2 weeks' time, we don't know. We are coming from the future. We're doing some episodes a little bit further in advance than we usually do because Jamie is going on a little bit of a tour with his band. But by the time you guys are listening to this, or maybe by the time of next week's episode, we should know what that episode is going to be in 2 weeks' time. So look forward to that. And actually, I do know in 3 weeks' time, though, because there's a new Beverly Hills Cop coming out. So I think we're going to go Beverly Hills Cop mode in 3 weeks' time. Sweet.
I've never watched those and always wanted to, so I'm very happy about that.
I like the Tony Scott one because it's so flashily directed.
It's the third one,
over the top. That's I think it's the second one.
Yeah, I think it's the second one.
I don't know who did the third one. Was it John Landis who did the third? I don't know. There's a lot of...
The third one's kind of terrible. If I remember correctly. It's like
for some reason, I think that's the John Landis one, but I might be incorrect about that. We'll see. That's what you can expect from us. But that's going to wrap it up for everything, I think, this week. Thanks so much for listening, and keep it sleazy.
Keep it sleazy, y'all.